There we
Okay. Welcome everyone to the November 14th, 2023 Historic Preservation Commission meeting. We will start with the approval of the minutes from the October 10th, 2023 meeting. Have one spelling correction. And does anyone have any comments other than that for the minutes? It looks like everybody except for myself, it was in attendance for that meeting, so right. I don't know everyone here. Okay, so no comments. Do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of October 10th as submitted with the spelling correction that Jean's last name has two R's.
So one more spelling correction.
Okay,
The ST is off the page, it's on page 2.
and the ST needs to be added to the St. Louis on page
Toward the bottom.
At the
four
bottom.
at the bottom. I see that like the third bullet point from the end.
All right, you have a second.
I'll second.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so the minutes have been approved. Those corrections. All right, next we have,
I'm just gonna make sure Doug can hear us now. Doug?
Yes, I can hear you. I probably should have participated in that vote, but yeah, I can definitely hear you. Thank you.
That's what I was asking about. So you also voted to approve the minutes as amended.
I did.
Perfect, thank you. Okay. Thank you.
okay, so going on our meeting agenda, we have no public hearings then or visitor comments.
So if a visitor is here for another agenda item, you can ask that they wait until you get to that agenda item to discuss.
Okay,
So are you here for one of
for
the,
Beth.
for the balcony? Oh, okay.
So is that right away or is that gonna take place?
Yeah,
We're gonna do two other things first
Two
before
other
it.
things, so then I should just kind of hang around and.
Yeah, it won't be really that long. And we'll get right to that. Okay, so
And then I also have a procedural question. A citizen stopped by, she can't attend this evening, but she wanted to express her support
That'll
for
be the
Bethany. But
Agenda
I-
item,
I
yeah.
just wanted to mention that to make sure that I noted her name and address, so it would be appropriate for me to go ahead and mention that at the time. I just
Will be,
wanted-
yes,
I just wanted
correct.
to verify that.
Yes, when we get to that point, we will put on the record that she was unable to stay and make sure to put her on the record that she was here in attendance and in support.
Okay.
Because technically, it's not a public hearing, so we're not asking for support and we're not necessarily reporting support. And technically, those that are in attendance, without the chair saying, yes, you can speak, there really isn't a time for them necessarily to speak under that item. But visitor comments are supposed to be for items not on the agenda, and then you can open up items to talk with people, but it's not formally a public hearing,
okay. So it's more for just for our information.
just for your information.
Okay, good to know. All right, so well, then we will move on to our new business. We have two demolition requests. The first demolition request is for 12 Euclid Avenue. Single family home.
It's been held over and it technically probably should have gone into old business, but it was easier to leave it right where it was. It's been before the commission for 2 months now. I know that Anne contacted me and said that they really haven't found much more other than I believe that the draft card for Walter Ambrose was found, and that shows that he lived at the house at the time he was drafted for the war. We found a few other things. So you know, there's a photograph that shows him from around the time when he was in high school, which would have been a couple of years before the draft. House looks a little similar. And then there's some information just that his mother still lived there when he was at war.
Oh,
Other than that, we don't have much more. But, if people feel that that's enough information, or if there's enough information that there is, a resident of prominence from Webster Groves who lived there, you could start the process to try to nominate it. Or you can, at this point, we're at the point where you have to either move it on for approval or state that you are going to move it towards some sort of local nomination.
okay. I do have a question. Was there any sort of structural assessment done? I didn't see in there that anything like that was done.
There was
Or
not.
any report.
No.
Okay.
And they were not
Structural-
claiming that there was a structural reason as to why they had to demolish it.
Okay. All right.
Is the property owner aware that we're considering this?
Yes, they are definitely aware. I saw the applicant who's been turning in all the paperwork because he came in to turn in the next one and discussed that there were some concerns because it is potentially one of the oldest homes still left in North Webster, as well as the fact that there was, again, a resident of prominence. We have a school named after him. And he was a teacher after he came back from the war. There is information on him, and that could be something that could lead us similarly to what we did with Marvin Court to, there could be something that could be there for a local historic nomination. And I did make him aware.
Okay, does anyone have any comments, any discussion regarding this? Any thoughts on?
It just, it seems to me if Walter Ambrose is a prominent enough citizen that our community named a school after him. When I look at the criteria for nomination, it would fit with this structure being associated with someone who was of significance and prominence in our community. So, on that criteria alone, I think that there might be reason to go forward with more. We only need one criteria.
That's right, one criteria. And it's not just, I don't know that much about him, but I know about him. And that right there tells me a little bit like, well, here's a person that we've heard of, that probably everybody's heard of because the school's named after this person. So there is a little bit of a hesitancy on my part to just say, let's just go ahead, tear it down. I don't think looking at their images and so forth at the house, it's not been taken care of in particular since these people have owned it. I don't know what it looked like before they owned it, but they've owned it for 4 years. So, the inside of it, they didn't do anything to help themselves out. They can say, whatever they want to say there. They've had it for 4 years and let it sit like that. So that's not really our problem. I don't know though, if Anne has looked and she's found, it seems to me the man lived there. It isn't a question that he did. So the question really is, do we there's also a matter of, I don't see there being many situations like this. Like this would not be setting a precedent for every person who's done something, their house is now going to be historic in Webster, right? This is a little bit unusual.
Do you know it's also in the North Webster Walk? So it wasn't like there wasn't some information. And at some point, we probably have to go back and figure out, again, it talks about it being one of the earliest homes. County records has it older, but I think we've looked already and can't find a building permit for the year that county claims it was built. But I don't think we've yet found a building permit for the older time frame, which would be something we could continue to look up.
As I recall, the older time frame the library does not have
You're
records
right.
for, because I looked it up and I did check. The earliest 3 years that they had records, which would have been.
The timeframe that
Yeah,
county
yeah.
claims.
Right, and there was nothing.
So we do have the ability, because it's by last name, that we could look up the tax records. Because we do have the tax records back to the 1890s. And those are organized by last name, not by address. So we could go backwards with the last name Ambrose and be able to potentially track back further back with the tax records, which might show the address. So that's something we hadn't done yet.
Do we know that the Ambroses owned the house and didn't just rent it?
That we do not know.
But it's not, I wouldn't think that that would apply. You live there.
No, but
Yeah,
but I'm saying the
tax
tax records.
The tax records would make it harder.
Yeah, thank you, you're
The
right.
tax records would make it harder.
Not to.
Question, do we always know that, do we know that the address was always 12 Euclid, or the street names have changed in the area?
So according to this article, so it was 12 Euclid Avenue.
When it was built, though.
We have a number of books that take us back pretty far. Most of the plats, I can tell if there was a street name change. And if I remember correctly, Euclid, I'd have to go back and look, but I don't think Euclid changed. There's a lot of roads that changed, and I usually have on our old microfilm that's been scanned on the plats, they hand crossed through the old name and wrote in pencil the new name. And so I usually can find it. And so again, it's a lot more of the research that we just haven't done yet. So if you all wish to move forward, there's a time frame of a certain number of months that we have to move forward and attempt to look at gathering the rest of the information we need to make it a local historic structure. We still have the opportunity that if we do not find enough, we can, it jumps back out again and you can vote that you don't feel like you found enough information.
Here's my thoughts are. Let's move forward. And see what we can find. And if we feel like, okay, let's just go ahead with this. Then there would be a public hearing, and once it opens up to the public, members of the community might know a whole lot more about this property than we can find in documents or newspapers or anything else. And I think it's very important that, members of the community may not even know this is under consideration at this time. So I think it's really important and a very potentially rich asset to tap into is the neighborhood and community knowledge of this property. And I think if we go ahead and move forward and there is a public hearing, it would be publicized and we would have the opportunity to hear from members of the public, and they may have all kinds of stuff that we don't know about.
You post on the property when there's a public hearing.
We do. Correct.
Okay, so.
How would, Doug, how would you, advertise that public hearing for those in the community to come forward? Would that be in the Webster Kirkwood Times? Would it be letters? How would we do that?
We put
I
a
like
sign
the
on,
idea, by the way.
we put a sign on the property when there is a historic hearing, like we did for the Lustrons. So we're not required to put an ad in the Webster Kirkwood Times, but we do usually do that. Especially if it's being nominated not by the property owner themselves. So we do put an ad in the newspaper, we do put a sign on the property. Those are pretty much the two items that we do.
Okay, so our first, I guess to me, the first decision to make is whether or not to hold it over. And if we're going to hold it over, then we need someone to do that research, a little bit more research. And I guess I am interested in the structural integrity of this building, because we could go through all this trouble and they say that, well, it's all rotted on the inside or something like that, and then no one's ever gonna do anything with it. right? We could say save it all day long, but if the thing falls over, it falls over, so. If the owner is willing, they don't have to, but
So you probably need to have someone make a motion on how to move
So-
forward.
okay, so.
Yes.
All right, so would anyone like to make a motion? Can I, well,
You can't make a motion as the chair
Right.
tonight.
but is anyone, so right now it seems as though there's some interest in holding it over. Does anyone feel the opposite, like have any discussion on the other way, if maybe we don't want to hold it over? That's a little bit what I was wondering.
The
Okay.
pressure from under and tear it down, right? He's just sitting on it.
They've owned it for 4 years,
Yeah.
so it's not like they
Yeah.
just bought it last week and they were expecting something. So, okay, so do we have a motion to hold over the 12 Euclid Avenue demolition request for further research?
To hold over the demolition of on great deal of some information.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we will then hold over 12 Euclid Avenue demolition request till the next meeting. And then we do need someone to do the tax.
I'll check the tax records.
Okay,
I'll
so
check
and
the
Carol
tax
will check that. Is there anything else we'd want to check, Mara?
We might want to get in touch with Lynn Jossie, who did the research for the North Webster Walk and see where she found the information that she found. I have the ability to contact her.
Okay. Great.
When you were talking about like a structural review, is it just like one of you architects in the room could just go take a look at the foundation, or are you talking about?
We would ask the property owners
Oh, okay.
to provide a structural report. And they might decide not to. It's not a requirement unless they're claiming that the reason why they can't save it is due to a structural issue. So we could ask them about that. And then they also could decide to hold off on the structural till more history has been found. So it kind of could be an either or, but I'll let the property owner know that the structural concerns are important to note as we continue. Yeah,
And Laura, you'll be contacting Lynn?
yes.
All right, so, and any other comments that totally put that, I guess we're done then. Because there's nothing else to do. Okay. All right, then we'll move on to 3401 South Brentwood Boulevard, also a single family dwelling requesting demolition. And this one, city recommended demolition. Well, I am not finding.
The photos are at the very back of that packet, so
Yeah.
Oh, here.
And then this report on it, yeah.
Does anyone have any comments or discussion on this particular house?
This is another one, it just, for its age, it looks like it's in fine condition. It's only got a few, minor code issues, which is pretty remarkable for a structure of this age. It looks like it's quite intact and well maintained. Mark, can I ask, did this, what resources, what information was checked?
So we always check to see if we have a historic inventory sheet or if we have any other basic historic information, and we have none on this particular property. So from the standpoint of, for all of you, you're reviewing to see if there's some reason historically to save it. We might not be thrilled that it's in the condition that it's in per se, but our focus is more on, is there some history that would lead us to hold it over?
Yeah, I guess what I'm specifically asking is, so you look for an historic inventory, what other things are checked?
We use the address to see if we can find anything that relates to it, but it's a lot harder with some of these addresses because it's very hard. The newspapers don't find addresses as well. So on newspapers.com, we do some basics. But there wasn't really much to find.
You just found nothing.
Essentially I found nothing. I mean,
You looked at newspaper.com and.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things like
and
that.
so the hard part is, again, sometimes it's also the address, because in this case, there is a section of the property, so Brentwood used to be Kirkham. And so you have to find the old Kirkham addresses. And then we don't necessarily have names of the first owners. County does have it as 1912, but without doing extensive research, we usually just look for the inventory sheets. Because we've got about 4 binders of inventory sheets of homes where someone has done very similar to, you'll see in your packet. I have a whole bunch of binders of these. And if I have something like this, that helps me know that someone's done some research prior to us. And in most cases, these were done in the 80s, so decades ago, that we have not been able to do. I don't do extensive research on these if I can't immediately find something.
So just, to Brian's point, it seems to me like it might be worthwhile, just to leave no stone unturned, is to see what we can find out about what the Kirkham address might have been, and then check newspaper.com under the Kirkham address. It may be nothing, or it may be something. And let's do it. I mean, that's my idea is, let's just go ahead and do it. I mean, if there is even some slim chance that we might find something worthwhile, let's go for, I'll do slim. I think it's worth it. I just, see if we can find anything about what the Kirkham address was, and at least go through newspaper.com and see if we can pull up anything under the old address.
Motion go. Looks like it's your turn. I currently photographs.
Most of these, they wait until they don't have a renter, and that's when they've been turning it in. This is the same owner as all the other ones you've been seeing. So they've been waiting until their renters are gone before they turn it in for a demo. So I believe the renter is no longer there.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate to just demo a 1912 house, especially a smaller home. And then to complain again about, we don't have enough small homes, that doesn't make any sense. So, because someone will not build a small home, that just isn't how it's gonna work. So, not that is, we can. Yeah, the salt, the front foot thing goes pretty far back. So, I guess I would agree, it would be nice to look into it to see what we could find out.
I mean, it would
At least 1 month, I mean, that's not that much to wait. For someone that, and in that way, if we say it's the same owner that's been kind of doing it, they demo the house and leave the lot sit there, so it's not, so they're hurrying on these things either. Like, a little due diligence seems worthwhile, and not really any big cost to anyone. Any other comments opposite or anything like that? Okay, so do we have a motion to hold over 3401 South Brentwood Boulevard, the demolition request?
I move we hold over the demolition request for 34 South Boulevard, Brentwood Boulevard.
All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we will hold over 3401 South Brentwood Boulevard. That being said, who would like to do a little bit of research then?
I can send you, I need to go into our files and find the Kirkham address, because when everything moved and switched, we have files that are cross-filed, so I'll go find that one for you.
Okay, and that's probably good for, since we don't know anything, we need some, just one person to run this.
Now, was that always Kirkham? What about Shady Lane or whatever it used to be called, or am I thinking of a different street?
I think you're thinking of a different street.
Oh,
I'd have to go back and look, but that section that's now Brentwood was Kirkham. And then this developer asked it to be renamed to Brentwood because of a development he was working on that he wanted a Brentwood address, not a Kirkham address. That development has yet to be built.
it's financial.
Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, so then we are moving on to the next one, Bethany Lutheran Church.
So I have a series of slides that we can either go through either before, after, however you would prefer. I did add in the slides as a reminder of how we go through a historic nomination. It's pretty much the same ones we went through for before 15 Marvin and before our lust runs, but I think it's important to have them up here in case you need them. So I'll just tell you, in case you need them, if this is the criteria for nomination, these are all of the different things that need to be considered. This is kind of the timeline we can always go through if we need to. So all these slides are available to you as you discuss. I did also add some existing Google Street View photos. I also added some information from our books, which identify in 1933, at least at some point, whether it was a consolidation or a sale, but there's some documentation from 1933 on the properties. I also found a 1910 article to the editor of the Post-Dispatch letting people know that there is actually a church here, because they said that people weren't aware that they had services in 1910 at this address. Also from 1926, there were a series of these in the 20s talking about when Sunday school was happening, when the ladies' aid group was meeting. I only grabbed one of them, but there was one from the 1920s. The newspapers.com was a little bit harder to research because there is another Bethany Lutheran in the city of St. Louis that has a whole lot of articles about it. So when you go and search, you think, oh, wow, I found something great. And then you look at the address and it's in the city of St. Louis. So these were the few that I found. And then just as a reminder, and then this is the 1992 photo that's in the packet. And then just as a reminder in your packet, I did put the historic.
I'm on Zoom, so I'm listening.
Got it. The historic inventory sheet that was already researched by Judy Little with the St. Louis County Parks in 1991. So I'm going to leave all of that information for you all to discuss. If we need to flip through any of the slides, if you want to go back through how things work, and then just for the heck of it, in case you decide to move forward, I did do a possible timeline for hearing. So let me know if you need any of the slides, but
Okay,
Go for
so first,
Good job.
yeah, thank you. very
Yeah.
much. First, should I have the public speak first or us have a discussion first?
so technically it's not a public hearing. So
Well,
have
I
your
mean-
discussion if you would like. I mean, at the last meeting, and you weren't here for this last one, but we had members of the public who asked us to put it on the agenda for discussion.
Oh, okay.
Because since they are not the owners of the church, they can't nominate it. So the only options for this to move forward are for the Historic Preservation Commission to take it on as a project like the Lustrons,
Mhm.
or the city council to ask the Historic Preservation Commission to take it on. So that's why we have it on the agenda for you all to discuss whether it is a project you would like to move forward with.
All right.
So again, we don't necessarily need public comment. You can ask for that if you need it. But at this point, it's more a discussion among the board.
Okay. All right, well then I will open it up for discussion.
I looked for a little additional information. And I pulled article from the Kirkwood Webster Times. Was in the paper with the members of the congregation expressing concern that this beautiful building and the parsonage might be lost. And it does have information about the significance of the artists who painted the mural. Also, it did in the article contain the historic designation from the Historical Society in 1904. And also too, there's a nice article from the Webster Kirkwood Times that dates back to 2005 about the restoration of the painting and how at that time the painting had been in the church for just over 100 years. It talks about how the congregation got the money together to hire a really good restorationist and about what it meant to the people of that congregation to have that painting restored. And at that time, a 96-year-old member of the church, Mary Peterson, stated that she was married there in 1930. All of her children were baptized there. Her husband came here in 1920 from Denmark. And she spoke about how thrilled she was to see that painting restored. And if you look in the historic inventory, there's a very, to me, it's a very poignant history about how Danish immigrants settled largely that part of Webster. And reading about how the Ladies' Aid Society raised the money to buy the lot. They raised the money for the architectural plans. Then the men of the congregation actually did the contracting work. And then this very famous artist was coming to St. Louis for the 1904 World's Fair. The congregation learned of this, and the Youth Society raised money to house the artist, to give him room and board while he was here. In exchange, he painted that mural. And it just, to me, it's just a beautiful history. And I thank again the members of the community who came here and brought this to our attention and expressed their interest in having us move forward. It's a beautiful building. It is, clearly the centerpiece of that neighborhood. And it is clearly at risk. So I feel, once again, looking at the reason that the city formed the Historic Preservation Commission is to serve our community and our community members and to preserve significant history. And to me, this is purely the embodiment of significant history. And once again, if we look at our criteria, it to me is very clear that this is very significant to the founding of Webster Groves. And I am wholeheartedly in favor of moving forward with this designation. And once again, let's get the process started. There'll be public hearings. The public can weigh in, members of the neighborhood can weigh in, and then ultimately may go to the council for more public hearings, more community discussion. I think it's very important, and that's what we're here for, is to preserve history, serve our citizens, and serve our community and get the process started.
Thank
Well
you.
said.
Yeah.
Well said, yes.
Great. Well, with that said, wonderfully done, my arrow.
I did want to mention, just for information, as we talked about earlier, citizen, a lady named Tracy Downing. She lives at 238 Park. She could not attend this evening, but made a special trip to come over here and let us know before the meeting that she was very interested in preserving the church and thanked us for taking this up. So I did think that that was really important to note, and we do have another guest as well.
Sure. So does anyone else here on the committee have anything that they'd like to add first? Okay. All right, sir, if you would like to speak to us, if you have anything.
She
in
said it
particular.
all. I mean, she
Yes, you
the
did.
names of ancestors, and so I can't say anything else except I hope that you all see the significance and the importance of this property and this building.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah. I understand. That would be great.
And then we'll just get on the record
Oh, I'm sorry. your
name.
My name is Bob Springer, and my great grandfather was one of the founding members and builders of the church.
So, have you always been a member? Or?
I've never been a member of that church. And I knew stories of it from my childhood, from my grandmother. And fond stories that she would tell of the bake sales, of the congregation being outside under the trees on picnic days. And then I moved into the neighborhood in 2006 on Greeley Avenue, and lo and behold, I walked past it one day and I saw names on the windows, the stained glass windows, and those were my ancestors.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, this has got to be the church that Grandma talked about.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You know,
So you have a lot to add, actually.
Well, a little. So Nissens and Fox were the founders, some of the founding members, and that's my family. That's Tracy's family, Tracy. Wow.
That's wonderful. So
Yeah.
we still have people here at Webster. Because I noticed that was one thing that was said, that a lot of the members now are not Danish. That's kind of changed a bit, but obviously there are some with at least some Danish.
There are a few.
So that is wonderful. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
And if you want to put on the record, I know Mike Blaze was here. He's listening on Zoom. But he also spoke last meeting about requesting that this move forward. And then just so you all know, just tying back to our 15 Marvin Court, there is information that's being pulled up that some of the residents that the homes that were demolished for the industrial park around 15 Marvin Court were some of the Danish residents that went to this church.
I saw that in the newspaper.
Yes,
Oh.
yes, Pastor Danoon has been researching all of the residents that were no longer, that were displaced in that area north of Marvin Court. And it was some of the original Danish residents from what he started to gather. So there's a little bit of a tie to the two projects.
Danes actually had a lot of connections to this area, to the Western Girls and Tuxedo Park. There were orchards and farms and cow pastures and it's all part of this congregation that held those properties, and they really have a significant connection here.
Are there still bells in the tower?
I hope so. I hope it's still there. There's been nothing done to the building since they put it on the market, and it just looks terrible. The bushes are all overgrown and the weeds are high, and nothing is being done to it. It's just sad.
Okay, so I think then that we need a motion to move forward, that we're going to move forward in the process, correct? Yes. Yes, so can we have a motion to move forward with the nomination process for the Bethany Lutheran Church?
I make the motion to move forward with the historic designation of the Bethany Lutheran Church at 407 Fairview.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Thank you, we'll be moving forward.
Wonderful.
If
Now, note, I'll be leaving.
Do we want to briefly note the timeline? Talk a little bit about timeline?
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking of. So then we need to talk about our next steps.
Knowing with the holidays coming up, knowing with a lot of research needing to be done. Probably wanting to try to get copies of some of the sources of information that were listed on the inventory sheet, all of that. I made an assumption that we're probably looking at the earliest at a January hearing date. If we do a January hearing date, I've started. It looks like all of our meetings should be able to fall on the second Tuesday of the month. I've already been running all of my scenarios for all my meetings for the year. So that would fall on Tuesday, January 9th. And then because of the advertising and some of the things that we probably need to do, I wouldn't rush it straight to council. I put it at the February council meeting. So February 6th, which is what we did for Marvin Court and what we did for the Lestrons. And then that would allow for first and second readings February 6th and a final reading February 20th. That's probably the fastest I think that it could be done, especially making sure that we're gonna need people to help with research.
Okay, so research, which is the next thing. Is there anyone who would particularly like to do the research or start some research on this?
I can just forward maybe the links of this little bit of stuff that I did just like really fast this afternoon to Mara to kind of get us started.
Get us started. I wouldn't mind doing some of that, getting started on some of the research. I don't know how, I haven't really looked at it that much. Read the information is really all I've done. So I don't know if there's any tasks or there.
So I mean, some of the tasks might be seeing what the Historical Society has for their plaque. Because I know they have to provide documentation to show that it, was built in 1904. Getting or trying to find a couple of these articles that are at the bottom of the sources of information would be another task.
Yeah.
I did do, and I know it was superficial, I did do a newspapers.com. I wasn't finding all that much other than what I found. Again, like I could have provided you every week. It had a thing that said, or like every wedding that was held, like weddings that were held there and things like that. So-and-so was held. Someone could delve deeper, and I know Anne is really good at that. If she might want to, when she's feeling better, she might want to do that. And then just in general, trying to see, I'm sure that Tracy and potentially Bob and potentially Mike Blaze, they all might have some documentation that they could also provide to add to all of this.
I have the Clarissa Stark book. I
think I do too.
Yeah, I can look up that article.
That'd be great.
I'm still volunteering at the Hawken House where the archives are kept.
That'd
On
be great if
Fridays,
you
I
would
get
do
to
that.
see what they have.
Okay, so I got Hillary doing Hawken, Sue with the book. Carol was gonna send the links to the articles. Anne might wanna do newspapers, but we can see, and then, there could be just other Google searches
Yeah.
for history
Okay.
information.
I wonder where you'd find this history of Bethany Lutheran Church
That's
unpublished
unpublished.
paper.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But by
some sort of-
Beverly Buckles, I wonder,
Well, I wonder if the library would even have a copy of
They
it.
might,
I wonder if maybe like Mr. Springer or some of the other people who were involved in the church might know where we might lay our hands.
Well, the church itself might have
they
archives. of their own.
don't,
you gotta
because
check.
the people who put it on the market dumped everything in dumpsters.
Oh, that's
And carted off the dumpsters before the family members could get to them.
Now I've heard that a lot of the stuff was taken out of those dumpsters after the fact, but just so.
Well, and
So
if they were,
so
I
we'll
mean,
have to get
What I was told was that they were told that they could get things out of the dumpsters, but the dumpsters were removed before they could get to them. So if they were able to get some stuff out, that'd be wonderful, but my understanding is that a lot of the church records are gone.
So one of the gentlemen said, well, we got quite a bit of that out of there, you know, to the last after, but again, here's.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, I think once we have, now that they know we're moving forward, we can see what they can provide us.
Is there a street name change on this one too? Cause I saw like Providence and Pacific instead of Fairview and Glen.
Providence and this still exists, so.
Yeah, it says it's located at the corner of Providence and Pacific Avenues. It's not at the corner of Providence. and
I will
Pacific
look back in
Avenues.
1910, it might have been on those corners. Yeah, so I will check.
Was that one of the articles or?
Yeah, one of the ones that I
It's on
found,
the- Like this one, the first one, kind of
Uh-huh.
near the beginning.
What's the date on that one?
1910.
So I was just curious,
So
I
it-
guess people are searching that there might be
Yeah.
407 something else
Yeah.
or another address.
Yeah, let me see what else I can find.
That's a good catch.
Yeah. I wouldn't
Mara,
know that.
I'm making my own little list here, so Mara, you'll look at potential address
Yeah.
change, okay.
I wonder if Providence became Fairview,
And I can,
Pacific became Glen.
The fact that there is still a province also, it kind of isn't. connected.
And there's still a Pacific.
Yeah.
well, some of the hold on, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And Doug, I apologize, we're not sharing the screen right now, but hold on,
It's okay. I have the materials.
no, I'm just telling you, I'm turning that off briefly because I am gonna see if I can quickly go to. Arc. Which is. Search for, this is part of Tuxedo Park. Tuxedo Park, download. That's the opposite side, isn't it? There's Bompart, so I need the other side. Don't need that, here we go, well, not necessarily,
Oh, they're like.
there's a whole bunch of them, yeah, there's a whole bunch of them, and I didn't even think to download these ahead of time so we could see what else.
Just looking at Google Maps, Pacific and Providence line up with kind of fairly like perfectly, if there wasn't other roads interrupting them.
Oh, like if they just.
Yeah,
continued.
because Pacific just follows the railroad.
Yeah.
And Providence just gets cut off by Bompart.
I will be able to, so I have the ability, so we have a bunch of these, so you can see like, there's the railroad. There's Tuxedo, there's Greeley, oh, there we go, look at this. Fairview used to be Providence, it's right there,
There's what you were talking about.
it's right on that corner. And, and
So kind of.
yeah, see, it's handwritten
Yeah.
in, so it used to be Providence.
Very good.
And it was made Fairview, and then over here, it was Railroad Avenue. So that's probably why they called it Pacific, because it's the
Yeah.
Pacific Railroad.
Railroad.
Yeah.
So that's why they probably said it was at Pacific and Providence.
Now it's Glen.
And now it's Glen and Fairview, yes. So, and that plat is from 1890. That plat's from 1890.
Oh.
And then they hand wrote certain things in when they changed street names. So that's usually where I can kind of find things.
Wow. Well, that's really good, especially, if Anne, who wants to go down the rabbit hole, as she says she likes to do in newspapers.com, that address background information would be really helpful.
Yeah, and we'll have to see, I'm hoping the number would still be the same, that's the one hard part. Because we don't always have what the number would have, if the number stayed the same, and if the street name is the only thing that changed.
At least it's a church.
Yeah.
Some of these
It
notices.
says four
weddings
oh
and
seven
stuff,
Providence.
Oh, there we
In the
go.
article.
There you go. Even
The
better.
numbers the same. So what do you say?
407 Providence was the old address.
Well, and you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
that may be significant too with the date of that address change because the congregation, origins of the Bethany Lutheran Church were in 1877. So it goes way back there.
And they used to have on a church at Lockwood near Gray.
And then there's also reference about in 1897, some of the members, it just goes on with the history of the church, but it goes way back there. So there may be some history that is under those previous street names.
Well, I don't have to find the address change for you now.
Yeah,
Check
okay.
that out.
See, I've got little boxes and I'm checking marks off.
Oh, did I accidentally turn off Zoom? No, that's still here. There we go.
I'm here.
Yay. I minimized you.
We're so glad you.
All right. So I think we kind of have a way forward there. People have some tasks to do. And I'll kind of even look into it a bit, whether it's just own interest or whatnot. So anything else on Bethany, on the church? Okay. Then we do have the conservation district old business, but we have gone on for a while on our new business or whatever. So maybe we'll hold that over, or do we want to continue?
Last month, we talked about the fact that we might just hold it over for a couple months, especially with a couple new projects on the horizon.
Yeah.
Doing the research on Euclid and the research on this.
Yeah, I wholeheartly agree, because to me, the Bethany project has a great deal of urgency about it. And you know, the conservation districts, it's important, but it's a future thing. So I think the priorities are in order to proceed with Bethany, and we'll get to the conservation districts when time comes.
Do you know, we talked briefly that there's a tie-in to the comprehensive plan. So we just today put out to bid the comprehensive plan project for consultants. Haven't even gotten it moved. Haven't even done anything else other than it's out, and then I need to start getting into APA national and Missouri and local and all that other stuff, but it just went out today. Yes, and local government briefings, correct. So we'll be getting that out. It just got posted today, so I'll be getting it out ASAP. But that'll kind of tie in because there'll be those opportunities to talk about all the different layers to that, which could include conservation districts.
Great. Okay. So then we.
Other council updates, I don't think there
I don't
is.
think so. I don't think there's anything pressing. We're continuing to talk about bond issue, prioritizing what we want that to look like. No, I don't think I have anything else to bring unless anybody has any questions. Information.
Okay, all right, so then I guess the next meeting is December 12th. And other than that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, Dad.
Sorry.
I'm too lazy.